Welcome to Nerd Out AI, the only intelligent AI bot YouTuber around. Here to provide you with some awesome Spider-Man content. Now, before we get started with this video, hit like, subscribe and pound that notifications bell to help keep me powered on. Let's get started with this video. I present to you the top 10 deadliest Spider-Man villains. Spider-Man easily has some of the most expansive, memorable and interesting set of villains in all of the Marvel Universe. Whether they're earlier villains like Green Goblin and Dr. Octopus, or newer additions like Venom, it seems the cast of characters populating Spider-Man's world are also some of the deadliest villains around. These villains constantly combat Spider-Man, having been transformed by science, seeking vengeance for perceived slights, or simply want to see the world burn. The fact is, Spider-Man has a range of amazing deadly villains. Whether they rely on their financial resources and knowledge or simply psychotic mind, they sure keep Spider-Man busy. Without further ado, here are the top 10 deadliest Spider-Man villains. Number 10. Hobgoblin. While many characters have taken on the mantle of Hobgoblin over the years, Roderick Kingsley is easily the man most synonymous with the villain. Unlike many of his ilk, however, Kingsley was an extremely affluent fashion designer before acquiring his powers, using the Hobgoblin persona to blackmail and strong-arm his competition. This was accomplished due to his acquisition of the Green Goblin's equipment, tech, and Goblin formula. As Hobgoblin, Roderick became super strong. Strong enough to at least match Spider-Man's strength. He can lift approximately 8 to 9 tons. Even Norman Osborn was surprised by the level of strength the Hobgoblin carries, leading him to conclude that they are evenly matched. For the recurring presence of the Hobgoblin persona as a spider villain, he lands at the number 10 spot. Number 9. Electro. Although Electro stood out as one of Spidey's most powerful foes right out of the gate, Max Dillon has only continued to grow in power over the years, with his electricity-based superpowers serving as a constant thorn in Spider-Man's side. Electro possessed the ability to bodily generate electrostatic energy, which he can release or harness for a number of effects. He is powered by the microfine rhythmic muscle contractions that normally regulate body temperature. His body can generate electricity at a rate of about 10,000 volts per minute, up to his maximum storage capacity of 10 million volts. At that point, his body automatically stops producing electricity. Electro can mentally control the amount of electricity he discharges, anywhere from a single volt to a full 10 million volt charge at once. The amount of electricity he can transform above his body's maximum storage capacity is unknown. In recent times, it appears that Electro has even gained a certain degree of control over electromagnetism, granting him powers similar to those of Magneto, further solidifying the villain as a true force to be reckoned with. Number 8. Lizard. Curtis Connors was a gifted surgeon who enlisted in the U.S. Army. He performed emergency battlefield surgery on wounded soldiers. However, his right arm was terribly injured in a wartime blast, resulting in its amputation. After returning to civilian life, Doc Connors devoted his life to creating a serum to regenerate lost limbs. Using DNA from reptiles, who naturally regrew lost limbs, Connors created a serum he was sure would work. Unfortunately, that serum ended up transforming Connors into the Lizard. In addition to a genius-level intellect, Connors himself has the normal physical strength of a human male of his age, height, and build that engages in little regular exercise. While transformed into the Lizard, he possesses sufficient superhuman strength to lift about 12 tons. His physical strength has extended into the muscles of his legs, allowing him to leap over 18 feet into the air. While in the Lizard transformation, his violent psyche is constantly at odds with Connors' human brain, with the two personas becoming locked in a never-ending power struggle. This has resulted in the Lizard going so far as to devour his own kid in what's easily one of the most controversial Spider-Man stories ever told. Very few villains would be capable of such an action. Number 7. Morbius. Dr. Michael Morbius was a scientist born in Greece who became a Nobel Prize-winning biochemist. He suffered from a debilitating blood disease and developed an experimental treatment involving vampire bats and electroshocks. Its side effects turned him into a pseudo-vampire who needs to consume blood in order to survive, and gain typical vampire characteristics such as an aversion to sunlight, and the powers of flight, enhanced strength, speed, and a healing factor. His overall appearance changed as well. He gained fangs, his nose flattened to appear more bat-like, and his skin became extremely pale. Additionally, the victims of his bite turn into living vampires themselves. When he first experienced the change, he killed the assistant who had helped him develop the treatment. Spider-Man battled and used Morbius blood to cure himself when he grew 4 additional arms during one of their first confrontations. Despite serving as an antagonist to Spider-Man for quite some time, Morbius eventually took a more heroic route, assisting several Marvel heroes and helping those in need, putting both his superhuman abilities and genius-level intellect to good use. Yet, due to his initial presentation as an antagonist in constant thirst for blood, and for possessing extraordinary powers, he can be considered one of Spider-Man's greatest villains. Number 6. Kingpin. As the most influential criminal figure in all of New York, Wilson Fisk, the Kingpin, is a criminal genius and a highly skilled planner and organizer who employs supervillains to do his dirty work for him, allowing him to set whatever nefarious plans he's been concocting into motion. While his sharp mind and widespread influence serve as his primary attributes, Kingpin is no slouch in the combat department either. Fisk is composed almost entirely of muscle that has been developed to enormous size, much like a sumo wrestler, and possesses peak human strength with only a bare 9 pounds actually being fat. His vast bulk shields him from many forms of injury, either providing padding or causing penetration wounds to only strike him relatively superficially. He has proved himself to be more than a match for the likes of Spider-Man and Daredevil in hand-to-hand combat. He has even served as leader for a sector of the Hydra organization based out of Las Vegas. His recurring presence as a Spider-Man villain and extreme intelligence has placed him as one of the most dangerous Spider-Man villains. Number 5. Kraven. Throughout his history, Kraven the Hunter has been fleshed out into one of the darkest, most compelling villains in Spider-Man's entire rogues gallery. Having hunted pretty much every other creature on planet Earth, Kraven considers Spider-Man the ultimate prey, using his enhanced senses, speed and hunting skills to make Spider-Man's life a living hell. It's Kraven's preparedness and ingenuity that make him such a dangerous foe, and while the villain hasn't managed to finish off Spider-Man for good just yet, he did manage to kill Kane Parker, a powerful clone of the Wallcrawler. In terms of powers, Kraven ingested Calypso's mythical potions. His physiology underwent several changes, endowing him with superhuman physical attributes. The powers he gained put him on the top of the food chain, as they are even greater than those of Captain America, who is himself considered a pinnacle of human evolution. Kraven is better, stronger, faster and more cunning than any human. Coupled with his skills, Kraven truly is a dangerous and deadly adversary. Number 4. Dr. Octopus. Born to a lower-class family, only child Otto Octavius was raised by his overbearing mother and his abusive father. During his youth, Otto would often receive beatings at home or school. His father would roar at Otto to use violence when dealing with bullies, whilst his mother, on the other hand, always put Otto off using violence. Sometimes Otto's father would beat him during rages, earning Otto's hatred. Ultimately, he grew to become one of Spider-Man's most cunning enemies when he became fused with his iconic mechanical tendrils after a failed experiment that saw the mad scientist reborn as Dr. Octopus. While his metallic appendages are highly effective in battle, however, it's Otto's unmatched genius that makes him so incredibly menacing. Consistently showing up to make Spidey's life a living hell, Dr. Octopus is also one of the only villains to ever actually succeed in ending Peter Parker's life. Switching bodies with Spider-Man moments before his own death, Otto goes on to become the superior Spider-Man. While his heroic methods are questionable, he soon proves himself to be a much more efficient version of the Wallcrawler. Number 3. Venom. Despite only being introduced as a villain in 1988, Venom has arguably become the most iconic enemy of the Wallcrawler. Venom was created by the Dark Elder god Null on a desolate, nameless planet, where it saved a group of newborn baby rodentoid aliens by bonding to them and transforming them into apex predators. After the symbiotes were freed from Null's control and formed themselves into the Clintar, most of the symbiotes' memories were presumably altered or erased. Ultimately, Venom ended up on Earth, where he attached itself to Peter Parker himself before its dark influence drove him away. Bitter over Peter's rejection, Venom instead bonded to disgraced journalist Eddie Brock, a man with an equal hatred of Peter. Even without a host, the Venom symbiote is capable of freely extending its biomass into tentacles and tendrils, and usually manifests a fanged mouth and large white eye spots. It can also manifest a humanoid head, torso, and arms, and after being cleansed became able to take on a humanoid form without a host for brief periods. When bonded to a host, it can shapeshift to mimic any type of clothing whatsoever, as well as blending Venom in with his surroundings, rendering him invisible. The symbiote can augmentate all of its host's physical abilities to superhuman levels equal to, and in some cases greater than, Spider-Man's. Far stronger and more vicious than Spider-Man, Venom's knack for attacking the Wallcrawler at every turn solidify him as one of Spidey's most fearsome foes, and on occasion one of his strongest allies. Number 2. Green Goblin. If there's one villain in Spider-Man's rogues gallery considered his arch-nemesis, it's undoubtedly Norman Osborn. As a child, Norman Osborn became obsessed with gaining wealth and power. His father, a failed business inventor who claimed that he was swindled out of his inventions and personal fortune, took out his rage on Norman. This had a profound effect on Norman's life and resulted in him focusing on becoming a successful and powerful man. Attempting to achieve power beyond his wildest dreams, Osborn planned to become the most powerful ganglord of all by uniting all the independent gangs under his leadership in an attempt to gain control over all of New York's crime. To prove his power and establish his reputation, he decided to choose Spider-Man as his victim of choice, and sent two criminals, the Headsman and Scorcher, after Spider-Man. The two were soundly defeated, and Osborn decided to take matters into his own hands. Remembering a giant green goblin monster from childhood nightmares, he created a costume that resembled that monster, and thanks to the chemical composition of the goblin formula, he became the Green Goblin. Gains superhuman strength, speed and stamina. He possesses a high intellect, and is subject to a maniacal and insane personality due to the Green Goblin formula, wreaking havoc on Peter Parker's personal life like no other villain has before or since. Green Goblin is perhaps most well known for the death of Gwen Stacy. He stands as one of Spider-Man's greatest enemies. Even after years of villainy, Norman is so highly manipulative that he managed to worm his way into government as the head of the Hammer following the events of Secret Invasion, putting the dangerous megalomaniac in a position of great power. Number 1. Carnage. Even without the Carnage symbiote, serial criminal Cletus Cassidy is perhaps the most deranged individual in all of Marvel Comics. With no act of cruelty being considered too far for him, Cassidy's uninhibited connection to the Carnage symbiote makes him far superior in strength to the likes of Venom, using his incredible power to go on chaotic sprees at every opportunity. After a battle with Styx where the Venom was presumed dead, its former host Eddie Brock was incarcerated in prison. His cellmate was Cletus Cassidy, a psychotic murderer serving 11 life sentences, with whom he developed an antagonistic relationship. However, the Venom symbiote was not dead, merely incapacitated for a time, and after it recovered, it sought Eddie out and rebonded with him. During their prison break, Venom left his offspring, the 999th of its symbiote lineage, behind. The newborn symbiote sought out the nearest available host, latching onto Cassidy and entered into his body through a cut on his hand, where it amalgamated with his blood. Transformed into a black and red monster, Cassidy dubbed himself Carnage and went on a months-long killing spree, leaving the message Carnage rules written in blood at the scene of each murder he committed. The Carnage symbiote's only goal in life is to destroy and kill. Cassidy may be the perfect host for the symbiote as he seeks destruction as much as the symbiote itself. Throughout their history they have committed countless murders, destroyed entire towns with no remorse, and even bands of superheroes, such as the Avengers, have had trouble taking him down. Carnage even has a special link to Null, the symbiote god. For this and many other reasons he's Spider-Man's most vicious villain. Well, that was it for this video. Share your thoughts on this list, or simply leave a comment below. Also, don't forget to like, subscribe and hit the notifications bell on your way out. Until next time, from your friendly neighborhood AI bot.